I'm Catherine.
And I'm Gail, and we welcome you to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast. This has been a labor of love for us, and we are now asking for your support. Please join Aging Reimagined Circle, our sustaining membership fund, so we may continue to inspire women to age with curiosity, courage, and creativity. Aging Reimagined Circle also hosts probing discussions each month. Visit our upcoming events at womenover70.com and join us today.
And today we're delighted to be talking with Roxanne Lorch, full-time artist, age 85. She works out of her studio in Durham, North Carolina. She exhibits her work in juried shows, and she happily wins awards. Roxanne was among the first women to work in commercial design and graphics who was not a secretary. She then worked for many years in the interiors field, and overall her first career lasted 40 years. Another first, Roxanne says that she is the, quote, oldest first-time bride in history. In 2007, after nearly 40 years, Roxanne connected with a former boyfriend, moved with him to North Carolina, proposed to him in his hospital bed, and mourned his death in 2014. Roxanne currently ages in place in an over 55 community where she's created a new family of friends. And another first, Roxanne was a member of the first chapter of the Transition Network, TTN, that started in Manhattan in 2001. TTN continues to be, as she says, her guiding light. Roxanne was referred to us by Ronnie Buckley, another TTN member, and an earlier podcast guest. So welcome, Roxanne. We're so happy to have you with us.
And I'm delighted to be here.
Right. Well, let's begin with the Transition Network. Just briefly tell us what it is. When did you get involved and why? And what keeps you involved at this point?
TTN was begun, as you said, in 2001. And the basis was to empower women in making life decisions and transitions from retirement on. I got involved when my mother had died a month before, and she said to me on her deathbed, "Haven't you worked enough?" And I said, "You know what? I'm 64, you're right." So I got back home and I was floundering, and I got a call from Charlotte, Frank, the founder of TTN, and just, "We're starting this thing. Come." And so I sat with 18 people in Christine Millen's apartment, the other founder, and that's how TTN began. And we started, our new Bible was called Don't Retire, Rewire. And we read it carefully, and I decided that, okay, my next career is going to be, for the time being, two-pronged. And I went into being a professional organizer, because in Manhattan, everybody lives in a place that's too small. And also decided to go back to design and art. And I went to the well-known Art Students League to study animal anatomy and portraiture. That went on for 12 years. I became and I kept on the professional organizing as long as I stayed in New York. But I started to show my work professionally in 2007 and began winning awards and continued as a pastelist. And when I moved here to North Carolina, I signed up with local organizations and a national pastel group, and continued to do this, bringing on pen and ink and watercolor, acrylic, oil, things like that, and just kept on. And this became one of my passions and reason for getting up in the morning. And I have a studio in Durham, and we'll tell you more about that as we go on. But TTN, I digressed a little. TTN stayed in my life until I moved. I had a peer group that has gone on for 20 years. Mm. I had to drop it when I moved, but that continued when Zoom started. Mm-hmm. And so I still meet up with them, even though they're in New York and I'm here. And I volunteered to have a discussion with Darla, the president, for the 20th anniversary. And during that talk, I mentioned to her that TTN was not meeting the needs of people over 70. She said, well, let's do something about that. And so Coast to Coast, which is a division of TTN, was started. And I was asked to be on the steering committee. So that's how I've been involved all along. And it's been a great nourishment for me.
So just to, Brani Buckley, I believe, is one of the leaders of the Coast to Coast chapter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She's one of our, as I mentioned, one of our guests, and she's one of our favorite people, actually. So let's just go back for a little bit in terms of when you started working in commercial design and graphics, and you were one of the few women working at a professional level. What was that like? What were some of the experiences that you had?
Well, starting when I started to look for work in 1960, people were secretaries, nurses, wives, writers. I only knew one doctor, and I didn't go to school with her. And when I went into graphics and design, I had a really hard time. People didn't want to hire me. You'll get married, you'll have a baby, you'll distract the men. When I promised to look ugly, they wouldn't do it. So I finally got something in commercial design, and I worked my way up from the bottom. And at some point, in around 10 years later, I got really bored with packaging and graphics and decided my favorite package was an egg and the brown paper bag, and decided it's time to move on. So moved into commercial interiors, where there were a lot of women and gay men. Mm-hmm. So that part was easy. I had a wonderful time in commercial interiors until I found myself lonely at the drawing board. Mm-hmm. And saw all the people who were calling on me, and they were having fun. I said, I think I'll go into sales. And I did that. And I went to work for a commercial carpeting company. And they said, great, we want a designer. You go out, you'll call the designers, you'll go out and see them, and you'll bring in a lot of business from the men. I went out and brought in a lot of business from the women. I also thought that, oh my gosh, designers are going to think that I'm a wuss because I left design. And guess what? They thought I was gutsy. Mm-hmm. And they liked it. So other people followed me into the sales field.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Wow. So sales was the last stint you did then, as in that whole industry?
Years, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, we want to hear the story about being the oldest bride in history. First time bride in history.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I met this guy in 1965, and we went together for 3 years, but for one reason or another, it didn't work. And we ran into each other on the streets of New York 2 or 3 times, but he had moved out to California. And I got a call in 2007 saying, hi, this is Ed, and would you like to have lunch? I said, why are you calling me? What's going on? He said, I'm getting a divorce. Okay. We met for lunch, and this time things really clicked. And we were commuting back and forth from New York and Boston. And he was a Southern gentleman, and he wanted to move back to North Carolina. I said, fine, you move, I'll stay here, we'll commute. I said, fine, but I'm going to look for somebody to live with. I said, I'm coming. So we moved down here, and I've been here ever since. He unfortunately was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer in 2013. And somewhere around January of 2014, when I heard things were moving downhill quickly, I said, hey, Ed, you want to get married? He said, sure. So we did. We got married in the hospital.
Wow.
And his son was there. And we grabbed two people walking down the aisle, down the hallway as witnesses. And I got married. He said, I've been waiting 50 years for this.
Oh, oh my.
So bittersweet. And then he died shortly after that. Yes.
3 months later.
3 months later.
Oh my God.
Getting married was the best thing I ever did.
Why? In what way?
Yeah.
I had never married. I was a single woman all my life. And I had no idea there was still tapes going on in my head from all the old days of, women get married. All I know is after I did this, the tape stopped. And I was very comfortable. And I had no great need to date again or whatever. And life was sweet.
Because you did that.
Good for you. Good for you. So what kind of work are you doing now, Roxanne?
I am quite involved. I just finished a month course on working in different types of color and studying color so that I can paint some, I don't have to make boring paintings of landscapes in green. They can be whatever I want. But it's very tough. It was fun. I tried to keep up and improve constantly. I have a studio in Durham that I'm very involved in. And I have shows. I'm in 3 exhibits right now. I constantly try to grow and develop. And I sell my work. And I love it.
And you obviously have a website. So how could people find your work?
Yes, you can find me at RoxanneLorch.com. www.roxannelorch.com.
Right.
And do you work in all of these different mediums now? Or are you focusing on one over the other?
Depends when you ask. If I go out in the spring or summer, and if it's not too cold or not too hot, I go out with pen and ink